It is 8:03 on February 2nd, 2024. I call this meeting of Medication and Safety Committee to order. Roll call. I see Commissioner Fowler. I heard Dr. Everman. I see Connie, Mike, Malia. Am I missing anybody on the committee?
I think that's it.
Okay. No old business. Sorry. We need to approve the meeting agenda. Commissioner Fowler, do you approve the meeting agenda?
Wait,
Oh,
would you mind adding one item to the agenda?
you're right. You're right. I would like to add a director's report as the first item on the agenda. Director Fowler, any objections to that?
No objection to that.
Okay. Glad I got Connie here to keep me moving through in order. In that case, no old business. And for new business, our new first item, director's report and introduction of our new veterinary consultant.
Good afternoon, Chair Barry and Vice Chair Fowler of the Medication Group and members of the committee. My name is Connie Wynn for the record. And I would like to start by introducing our outside expert for this committee. We talked in the commission meetings about having outside experts in all of our groups. And I'm very pleased to introduce Dr. Jack Root, who's on the call. I'm going to finish and then perhaps he can say a couple words to introduce himself. Jack will not be able to vote, only the commissioners are allowed to vote, but he is here to participate in the meetings and provide feedback. He's volunteered to do this pro bono, which we're very lucky on. I'd also like to remind everyone that we will take public comment at the end of the call. We'll go through all the agenda items first, and then we'll take public comment and presentations from the participants. And that concludes my notes for this morning.
Thank you very much. And I'd just like to echo Connie's, Director Wynn's comments that we're on a tight schedule today. I know folks need to get out of this meeting, so we want to run through our agenda, touch on everything completely, and hopefully be done at or before 9 a.m. Discussion on the plate agenda. Members of the committee. Dr. Everman?
Actually, let's start with Mike on this one.
Mike, okay.
Mike, are you still on? Yes.
Yeah, I proposed some language here a while back. And basically what I was proposing was that we go with HISA's current rule for thoroughbreds. And then the corridors folks wanted to stick with either 2-inch or 2mm toe grabs on the front or no traction devices on the front, but leave the rear, the hind legs alone. I added a little bit of language too to differentiate the difference between a quarter horse and a thoroughbred race, because sometimes we have mixed breed races. And I think that any horse participating in that race ought to be following the same guidelines. And really, that's all I have. I thought I'd wait for public comment and see how it goes, but I just went with HISA and with what the quarter horse folks had been saying for the most part.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. I just realized that Dr. Root hasn't had a chance to introduce himself, and since he's with us, I'd like to, I hope nobody minds me bouncing around after I said we were going to run a real tight meeting today. But Dr. Root, do you have a moment? Would you be willing to kind of tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am a equine veterinarian for well over 40 years now, and I breed and breed thoroughbred horses, and I've been a racetrack veterinarian in Oregon for several years, although I no longer am doing that. And certainly I have an interest in what happens with racing in general and the regulation of it. So I'm happy to participate on this committee, and I appreciate you all having me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Root.
You betcha.
Did we have any more discussion on the plate amendment? Oh,
Now I'm
Connie,
gonna
what-
bounce around, Chair Barry. One thing I forgot to mention is that, and I know that I believe everybody on this call pretty much knows, maybe a couple of you don't, that we are going to do an advisory committee meeting the week after next. Just to make sure that everybody's had a chance to go through all 4 of the medication rules that we're considering. And that every member of the community has had the chance to express their concerns or interests.
yeah, very important that everybody get a fair hearing. We want to make sure everybody's voice is heard. Thank you. Thank you, Director Wynn. That's it on plates. On to discussion on non-steroid anti-inflammatory medications. I know Dr. Lombard has a presentation and some information she'd like to provide us with. We're going to have that during the public comment section today. Anyone on the committee with thoughts on NSAIDs? Okay. Moving
Connie
on.
Wynn again.
Director Wynn, go ahead.
I would like to get Dr. Root's opinion on the changes we're looking at.
Okay, and you're asking specifically on Butte right now, the non-steroidals?
Correct.
Yeah, we can hit the rest during the advisory committee meeting, but since Bute's on here, that would be good to get your perspective.
Sure. And, I think, since I've talked to you the other day, Connie, I've certainly thought a lot about this and, what it means, doesn't mean whatever. And I'm a little bit uncertain, I guess, as to why we've decided to change it. Whether that matters. And then Dr. Lombard's little write-up here certainly is compelling, as to, whether, we either use Butte or we don't, you know what I'm saying? And the level of it, I think is hard to, for me, it's hard to argue that there's a big difference. You get an appropriate dose, and does a way higher dose make much difference? I don't know. And nonetheless, like I said, I think that Dr. Lombard's little article she wrote here is pretty compelling. And whether there's any relationship on the decreased Butte regarding breakdowns, I personally couldn't see that in any way, shape, or form. And I think there's probably other issues, but nonetheless, I kind of want to hear what everybody else has and kind of keep my opinion down for right now. Okay.
Thank you, Thank you, Dr. Root. I appreciate that comment.
That's it.
I guess well, you know what? I think this is not the time for an extended discussion on it. I thank you very much for your contribution, Dr. Root. Any other committee comments, questions? Okay. Item number 3, discuss partnerships with veterinary schools. I think this one is going to be pretty, well, we'll see if it's controversial. I don't imagine it will be. Anyone have thoughts on partnering with veterinary schools?
I think that's a great idea. I don't see anybody who wants to help or intern, that sounds like is a benefit to us. And some people coming from the veterinary school is more knowledge on the vet side. So I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I think the state of the knowledge keeps being a confounding issue, and we keep debating gray areas. And if we can get the vet school involved and maybe work toward getting clearer answers, then we can make better decisions, hopefully, or at least the most informed decisions that we can. Any other? Oh, Commissioner or Director Wynn, go ahead.
Yes, commissioners, I did have an opportunity to ping. We've emailed back and forth, and there's been a couple calls back and forth, but we haven't actually talked. to our former commissioner, Mike Huber, who is in charge of their equine program there. And he's really excited to try to do something. This would be something, what we do would be determined on what he and Dr. Everman thinks are the best opportunities for us. So I would be working very closely with Dr. Everman and Dr. Huber to determine what resources are out there and what we can do. And this would also perhaps involve Karen Parkman and her new grant writing skills. Dr. Everman, do you have any thoughts on that? We really haven't talked about it much.
I think the biggest problem we will face as a racing commission is that we only race 2 days a week, and the pre-race exams done in the morning. It's a long day on the 2 days, which would not be a problem for the interns. I myself did internships as a veterinary student a long time ago. And it's what do you do with these people the other 5 days out of the week? Because we do the pre-race exam on race day. So we have long hours for 2 days, and then 5 days of maybe there'll be a work, but that'd also be very early in the morning. And the rest of the day, the horses are put away. And what are you going to do with these people? How are you going to house them? I have to talk to Dr. Huber about that. I know him also. And I see it as a problem of how the racing commission would make an internship functionally work.
And Dr. Everman, I really appreciate that. And I just threw internship on there as a possible idea. So, anything that we can do to partner with them is something to discuss.
I think we have several sub points on here, but I don't think this isn't something I think we need any kind of special commission approval for. I think this is something just generally partnerships with the veterinary schools. The commission staff can just start pursuing and figuring out what options might be available. Because at this point, I don't think we do know exactly what we would like to do and what would be feasible. I think we're at the very, very early stages of this, and anyone who has concerns like yours, Dr. Evan, bring them up, because we are kind of trying to figure this thing out. Nothing is written in stone, and we do want to make sure anything that we trial or implement goes as well as possible. Any other thoughts? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Jack Root here. I think that, if, I don't know how aware you non-veterinarians are of the current problem the veterinary profession is facing making horse doctors. And we're starting to get a bad horse doctor shortage, and all, near-term indications are it's not going to get any better. As a veterinarian that has a practice, it is difficult to hire a horse doctor now, difficult. And that's because most of the new graduates are going into small animal where the income is higher and where they don't have to do emergency. And, it's a horrible problem for for our profession. And I don't know what we're going to do about it, but I think having an intern in this is a good idea, because maybe we can take some of these students and inspire them on the horse end of the spectrum. And, from that aspect, I think it'd be great. And I think that, Dr. Everman's concern was that we have 2 really busy days and 5 not so busy days. And I can assure you that I think these students can, hopefully even on their own, figure out where to spend their time, whether it's, actual away from the track study, or maybe hanging out with the veterinarian that's doing the track work and, learning about racing. So I think that I'm all for it if we can get such a thing.
Thank you, Dr. Root. As you say that, I think about high school kids who will ultimately be fed into both, hopefully, veterinary programs and develop an interest in racing, and maybe there are opportunities there as well. I think there are probably a lot of opportunities. I don't know that we need to belabor this, but certainly some sort of exploration of partnership with veterinary schools to increase with the ultimate goal of increasing safety and maybe some ancillary benefits of getting more vets interested in working with equines, as Dr. Root says, and who knows what else. Other thoughts on partnering with vet schools? Okay. Number 4, discuss communication plan for all safety changes. Boy, this is important. Everybody should be on the same page. Director Nguyen, I'd like you to take that one, please.
I don't have all the answers on this by any means, and I'm certainly going to look for recommendations during public comment time. The things I have thought about is putting together materials and sending them out to all the associations, all the racetracks that we know will be sending horses to us to distribute there, as well as on our website and the track's website, and through any packets that go out to horsemen that'll be coming out here. And I'm, of course, looking for any other means. We could even do a paper mailing to some of these people if we have an idea of who's coming out. I think getting the communication out there, whatever we do, as early as possible, is going to be extremely important. So I look forward to hearing other ideas. And Dr. Everman and Presiding Stewart, Mike Twiggs, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that and what ideas you have as well.
Mike, you want to go first?
I don't have much on that because I haven't been considering that area.
Okay.
I
Well, sorry.
just need a little time to think about it, ponder it, sleep on it a bit.
I think that's a good idea. Certainly, we can take comment during the public comment period, and I suspect Connie reads her email regularly. In fact, I know she reads it regularly. So, following this meeting, anyone who has any thoughts about how we can best disseminate information, we do not want to spring surprises on anybody. We don't want to spring surprises on anybody. So, if you have any ideas about how we best get information out, please speak up during public comment. Email Connie. Send up some smoke signals, whatever it takes. We want to know. Anything else on communicating safety changes from the committee today?
Ron?
Well, I would just like to emphasize what you said, which is that we communicate a lot with our industry partners, and we make it very clear to them any changes or even the current state of the situation, that we communicate frequently with all the associations that are dealing with the racetrack and the attending veterinarians, et cetera, that everyone knows exactly what's the new situation, current situation, whatever the situation might be, that it's completely transparent and open to everyone.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I might add one thing now that I've thought about it for a minute. The stewards are the ones working in the trenches along with Dr. Everman. And we can do quite a bit right there on site at the individual tracks with an open door policy, notes in the overnight or posted in the race office, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we've done things like that quite often in the past. So this sounds like maybe an extension of that.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, my impression is that everyone works very hard to communicate and make sure that, as we say, nobody gets surprised or feels like something's been sprung on them. And I think that a lot of that is down to the staff communicating well. The good attendance that we see at these meetings. Any other thoughts on communication of safety plan? Okay, with that, I'm going to open it up to public comment, and I'd like to start with Dr. Lombard. And following Dr. Lombard's presentation, we'll move on to anyone else who has comment. Sound good to everybody? All right, Dr. Lombard, take it away, please.
Good
Dr.
morning,
Lombard,
everybody.
would you like me to share the screen and show this?
Yeah, that'd be wonderful. I hope everybody got it, and I don't want to just go through it again. But if anybody didn't get it or we need to discuss details about it, I'm happy to. As Commissioner Barry requested, I put the document together so you guys could maybe have a little bit of time to digest things ahead of time. On my thoughts on the three main things that I want to talk about were the NSAIDs, the changes in Lasix, and then I do think that bisphosphonate should be part of our regulation as well. So I don't know how much detail you guys really want to go into, or if you've had a chance to read this or not, commissioners.
And is the document up? Can you see it?
I can see it from here. I don't know if everybody can.
I can see it.
So my main point here is I don't think that changing NSAIDs, why are we changing NSAIDs, which is also what Dr. Root alluded to. Why are we going to change those levels? And looking at what I feel like would be the goal of that would be to reduce catastrophic injuries. We've reduced bute levels, and I use bute as the example because that is the main medication of the 3 NSAIDs that are allowable for race day. Bute levels, when we didn't significantly change our catastrophic injury rate. So is changing it even more going to do something differently than we expect? There are so many factors that go into catastrophic injuries and breakdown rates, also as Dr. Root alluded to, and I think there are some bigger issues there that we should sit down and talk about, but I don't think changing the NSAIDs is what is going to make a difference. Also, I am concerned about the disclosure of the gambling public, and I don't know if Dr. or Mr. Twiggs wants to talk about that a little bit, but if we run a horse and it's entered as running on a medication, the horseman is doing their best to be below this ridiculously low, if you ask me, ridiculously low threshold of 0.3. They're trying to walk this fine line of making sure that the horse has enough bute in their system to test positive when they go to the test barn, because they ran the horse listed as bute on the form for the gambling public, but then they give such a low dose that they don't show up with any. How is that really fair to the gambling public? And how do we deal with that as far as fines for horsemen, and how do we represent ourselves to the public appropriately? So for me, changing it, I don't see we're gaining anything.
What do we gain by having horses taking anti-inflammatories? So I mean, what do we gain by running horses that are sore enough that they need to have an anti-inflammatory on board?
And it's a very fair question. So what is sore enough, right? I mean, I use this example all the time, and it's not the perfect example, but if you're gonna run a marathon, I'm taking an Advil. It's been a long time since I ran a marathon, but when I did, I'm gonna take some Advil. I just feel better before, after the race. I bounce back faster. Am I gonna have a higher rate of twisting my ankle? Probably not. But the Advil is gonna make me recover better and be healthier and happier after the race. And Dr. Root, you might have a better example than I do.
I don't know, horses break down and people don't. So, I mean, that's
True story.
And
you know, horses have catastrophic breakdowns, but, you know, I guess, you know, I'm not going to be very popular in saying this. I think racing would be better off if we got rid of medications, period, because of what the general public thinks and what the, you know, the HISA thing is, you know, I think created more problems than it solved. It's my personal opinion. But of course, fortunately, Oregon's not in that right now. But, you know, I'm not sure that, you know, many years ago, like before bute was ever allowed, we were saying that we needed bute so that the horses could race more often. And at that time, we were having over 11 starts per starter per year. And now we have less than 6 starts per starter per year. So did we really make them race more? And of course, there's other factors, but, you know, I'm not sure that ultimately just how beneficial it is or whatever. But, and, you know, when you back the levels way off, then I just think, well, it's not doing much anyway. So I think we either decide we have it or we don't. And if we have it, I think that the present medication rules, and I'm going to agree with you on this one, Alice, are probably adequate, and maybe not tinker with that for the time being.
Am I understanding you guys right that it sounds like the decision is, do we have bute or do we not have bute? The levels, if we're going to have it, the levels, in your opinions, are okay. And if we're not going to have it, then we just don't have it. Does that sound accurate?
Yes,
think
with the
so,
small
yes.
qualification of if a horse every horse metabolizes it differently. So level of detection of bute, if we are just barely over that level because the horse had bute 2 weeks ago, that horse technically often would be over the level of detection and within the positive limit, maybe, depending on the horse. And so to say 0 is also
my-
a hard thing.
Could we talk?
My
just a
experience
little-
throughout the years is that horses metabolize bute extremely differently. And, you know, some horses get very low levels and other horses have very high levels, even though they've been given less bute or further away. And I think they just metabolize it way different. And, you know, and with these little regulations, of course, I think we've seen it, is that we get people in trouble that have really done nothing wrong.
Gotcha.
And
Gotcha.
that's where
Probably.
I have trouble with tinkering a lot with these numbers.
Why don't
Okay.
we just get rid of you altogether?
Well, I think like I said, I Jack Root personally wouldn't mind. I think that I am a small minority in the horse world in saying that.
You tell me to come meet after work. So
You know, I
But,
will say,
that's crazy. That's insane.
yeah.
That's insane.
Dr. Lombard brought up long distance running as a human athlete, and I'm not a great athlete, but I am an athlete, and I've run horses in 50-mile races, not for any money, but for pride. And I've run the horses barefoot, and they came out sound, and they get checked a bunch of times in those races. I have a personal bias against medication. I don't tend to take it myself, and I don't tend to like to give it to horses unless I've got a really good reason that the horse is actually injured. Is just getting rid of, I mean, what happens if we get rid of bute? What happens to racing?
What about
Well,
a compromise?
Probably not.
What if,
And see, go on, I'm sorry.
what if we kept the levels, the medication levels the way they are currently, but requested 48 hours? That way we don't have to worry about somebody whose metabolism is off. So if we did that, we kept the current levels for testing as they are. And I'm just throwing this out. I'm not a doctor. Dr. Everman, you're gonna have to tell me how far off this sounds. So we have
It's-
some guarantee that, you know, some horse that metabolizes different isn't going to go under. And I need to ask Mike on this. Is there a way to change the rules so if somebody does not show up positive who said they were on bute, where they don't get fined?
Yes, just by taking it out.
Okay, would that
We-
satisfy everything? And what do you think, Dr. Everman?
Well, the biggest problem is not that the horses are running on so much bute, but we're doing pre-race exams on horses that are on bute, which we're doing that in the morning of the race day, which might not have a post time until 5 p.m. So we might be considerably ahead of the race time and the test barn time. So the bute level could actually be quite a bit higher. The other problem we have is that because we permit something, I talked to the director of laboratory at University of Illinois, Chicago, and we are the only jurisdiction that they test for that's currently at the 2 microgram level. Everybody else is down at the lower level we're projecting, which means the horse would get the bute 2 days ahead of race day instead of 1 day ahead of race day. And that's your average horse, and that's with a single intravenous administration. When the horsemen give it orally, they frequently are incomplete in their dosing and with what the horse is eating. And that's where a lot of the metabolism problems comes from, is not with the bute, but with the other things that go into the administration of the medication, what's in the horse's stomach when they eat, etc.
Well, you
So
look at us doing pre-race
I'm not
time
against
bill,
getting rid of it. I think that giving 2 grams orally the night before we do the pre-race exam in the morning. The problem is most horses don't break down on the thing that we would find that is a lameness on the pre-race exam. They break down the other leg trying to avoid the leg that's painful. So I'm not against getting rid of it. I'm not against lowering the level. I think that the big problem comes from the idea that we would be the only jurisdiction that would be staying with the 2 microgram level.
And if we do, the stewards then come into play, because I would argue that we extend the grace period for any change and a graduated penalty grid to reflect the difference between over 0.3 and over 2 and over 5, et cetera.
Yeah, I think that's important. Go ahead, Alice.
So I agree with what Dr. Everman is saying, and I really feel that this is especially true for the way that Oregon races, especially now. Like, we will be doing pre-race exams at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning for horses whose entry time or race time is 10 or 11 o'clock at night, which means that they got the Butte less than 12 hours right now from when we're doing our pre-race in the morning, usually. So the 48 hours, but leaving it at 2 for all our different metabolisms. The one thing that I think is important is the lab that you're talking about, Tom, is mostly a HISA lab. So there are several states in the nation that are at 2 or at 5 even. So we wouldn't be the only one above that level. So just to be clear about that part. But I think leaving it as it is, but having it at 48 hours makes the most sense for what we're trying to achieve.
Just to be the devil's advocate, because I'm really good at it. And then I suggest after that, unless somebody else who hasn't commented, we let them comment. We wait until we have the advisory committee meeting for much more. But the 2 jurisdictions where horses are coming from primarily are California and Washington, isn't that correct? To our area, and they
And
are.
Idaho.
Yeah, I don't know about Idaho, but the other 2, I know that Washington and
Yeah.
California are doing that.
A lot of our quarter horses are coming from Idaho.
Yeah,
And-
that's what I
And
was gonna
Wyoming and
say.
Montana.
Mhm.
Some, but more from Idaho and Washington and California.
1 or 2 from Utah.
And those quarter horses are running on 2 as the regulations in most of those states. For Butte
Oh.
threshold.
We're having a rules advisory committee on this. Do we
We
want to
need-
hold off for further discussion until we have that, at which point I think we write up the proposal based on the conversation and the full commission votes on it? Director Wynn, do I have that right?
Yeah, we keep going forward on it, but we need to ensure that whatever we decide to do, the full commission is aware of and agrees on.
Okay. Anything else that we feel like we need to hit today during the public comment portion? Anything else to let know about? Anybody?
Shall we leave the Lasix and the bisphosphonates to the advisory committee as well?
Yeah, I think so.
Randy, you're muted.
Yes,
Is
Chair,
Randy-
the only thing, just a second only on the horseshoe thing. I'm sure it's already been dealt with, but I brought it to Connie's attention that HISA has changed their rear shoe level. And I just wanted to, make sure that was being reflected in what we were contemplating here for changes. I think they went to 4 millimeter on the rear fairly recently. So that was it. I'm sure Connie's got it covered, but I just thought I'd better bring it up.
Mike, that's what you were talking about, correct? Is doing the combination of the new HISA plus a quarter horse.
Yeah, the most current HISA rules. Along
And
with,
the other thing Mike said that I thought was important was making sure that we're consistent. We've got mixed breed races.
absolutely.
Because I'm with him. We don't want horses running in different equipment. At least not in the same way.
I do think that maybe that language that I submitted or something similar to it might solve that problem.
Okay.
We'll work up some language before the advisory committee meeting.
Okay. Director Wynn, anything else you'd like to touch on, or would this be a good time for us to move for adjournment?
I think there was one more hand up. Who was it?
May I have a comment on the partnering with vet schools, just briefly?
Yes, please.
I think it's great. And Dr. Huber and I work together closely on a lot of things. And I know Dr. Everman does too with Dr. Huber on things. And I think it's going to be a really good thing, not just for the racing industry, but for the veterinary equine industry. And one thing that my graph about catastrophic breakdowns, we know there's more factors there than butte levels, right? Clearly there are changes and things happening. And a big piece of this that we need to talk about as an industry and as a state is our treating veterinarians, our boots on the ground every day, not just our commissioned veterinarians. And I think maybe combining some sort of internship or externship possibility with those veterinary students, where they're working with the commissioned veterinarians, but working with the treating veterinarians as well, could be really, really helpful for every party involved. So some sort of collaborative thing there could be really great.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential. I don't imagine a whole bunch of controversy. So I think, yes, there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of us to see benefit to the industry, to the horsemen, to the public, all of it. Great. Great, great. Anybody else? Connie, you see anybody? My views. I don't see more hands up. All right, then it is, what time does my thing say it is? 8:39. Commissioner Fowler, would you make a motion to adjourn?
I will make that motion.
All right, I second that motion. Let's call this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.